It's that time of year again. Bluebonnets will decorate the landscape before you know it. The seasons are changing from winter's ice to spring's new life. Christians have transitioned from ordinary time to Lent, and soon will transition yet again from Lent to Eastertide. It's that time of year again. Teachers anticipating summer and graduates like me asking, what's next? It's that time of year again, when couples prepare for summer weddings and life will change for so many people. I wonder what kind of transition the Hebrews anticipated as they painted their doorposts with blood. Life was changing pretty quickly for them. Even so, God's care for God's people is sometimes most clear during times of uncertainty and change. If you've ever experienced a Passover Seder or even seen a Passover platter, you know there's a particular order and liturgy to remembering that story of Passover. The platter has neat little sections that help with remembering that story. There's a spot for bitter herbs, remembering the bitterness of slavery. There's a shank bone, remembering the lamb. And of course, charoset. If you just sit down to the meal, you will get something out of it, but if you go through the longer process of preparation, then you'll get even more out of it. A few years ago, I did a presentation on Passover for a class, and I brought in a few traditional dishes and everyone's personal favorite gefilte fish. If you've never had it, it's horrible. I also brought in charoset. This dish represents the bricks that the Hebrews made and hauled under slavery. Preparing that dish of apples and dates and raisins, nuts, required a lot of labor. Peeling and chopping apples finely, chopping sticky dates. I already knew the meaning of charoset, but it wasn't until I went through the process of making it, feeling that stickiness and feeling the density of the mixture that I understood more deeply the meaning. Sometimes we want to blow through times of transition because we are so focused on what's next, of where we're going, that we forget that part of the difficult process could be the most meaningful. It could be that preparation time. Sometimes change is sticky and labor-intensive. Change doesn't happen as neatly as Seder platters are organized. They get messy. As a kid, I remember seeing Bible pictures of the Hebrews putting blood on their doorpost, and it looked kind of like scratchy crayon neatly on top of the doorpost. As an oftentimes practical and detailed person, I thought it was strange that it looked so neat in the picture. I remember wondering even then if the blood dripped and made a mess. Sometimes we look at other people's changes and transitions and we think, wow, they've really got it together. That really may not be the truest reality, though. Anne Lamott says that when someone has their Christian act together, they have just that, an act. No one really has it all together. Change is messy. There will be discomfort. There will be uncertainty. There will be faith involved. This is part of the joy of change. How vulnerable are we when our routine is out of place and the future is unknown? But also, what an opportunity to renew our sense of connection and trust with God. I wonder if this is part of why the Hebrews were commanded in verses 26 through 27 to tell their children what had happened, so that Passover's generations' faithfulness would inspire and encourage generations after them as they told of their obedience and God's faithfulness. Maybe that commandment is also to avoid a sort of spiritual amnesia. Have you ever walked into a room and crossed that threshold and wondered, no, what did I come in here for again? Wait for it. No, it's gone. No. See, there's this phenomenon in cognitive psychology that when people have a thought, then they move from one room to another, especially rooms with different purposes. As their context changes, their thoughts change. When moving between those rooms, such as from the bedroom to the kitchen, our minds sometimes move on without taking past thoughts with us. Even when the Hebrew scenery changed, their context changed. The people who made up the Hebrews changed. God's faithfulness in this story must still be remembered. Why? Because we need to know and remember God's faithfulness all of the time, especially during stressful transition times. I don't think we can be reminded too many times about God's faithfulness. We can't be reminded too many times about God's liberating work. And we can't be reminded too many times that God will provide. At least I can't be reminded too many times. I wonder if this is part of the purpose and tradition of mezuzahs. A mezuzah is a tiny scroll with verses from Deuteronomy printed on it that goes inside a plaque-looking box or case that's affixed at an angle at doorways. You may have seen this at a Jewish friend's home. The text written inside is the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And the great commandment, to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and strength. The Lord your God is one during joy, during challenge, during changes, during stability. Love the Lord your God when you feel like it, when you don't feel like it, in and out of season. We need reminders of these truths, especially when doors are opening and we're moving through thresholds. If Exodus 12 and the Exodus story says anything, it's that change, big or small, is communal. As we change, as our situations change, for better or for worse, that impacts our families and our friends and our neighbors and our colleagues. Earlier in this chapter, when God gives instructions for how to prepare the lamb, he says each household should have a lamb, but the lamb should be shared with a neighboring household if it's too small to have its own. Contemporary celebrations of Passover are very communal. I can't imagine trying to go through the Seder liturgy by myself because it's not intended to be done alone. The proper word for this Passover liturgy is Haggadah, and it means telling. I could tell myself, but that would be kind of odd and certainly misses the point. Passover could not have been done alone. Managing the stress of changes and crossing thresholds cannot be done alone. God makes a way through community. Verse 11 says, "This is how you shall eat it, your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly." I have to tell you, I don't hurry very well. I hurry a lot, but I don't hurry very well. Here's the thing with change. We don't always pick the timing or the speed of change. Sometimes change happens and we just have to do our best with staff in hand, sandals on, scarfing down lamb chops in order to be ready for the morning. Sometimes we don't have time to let the bread rise, to get everything in order, every detail pulled together before change is knocking on the door. Of course, the Passover was a crisis moment, and not all of our changes are crisis moments. But I don't think God, Moses, and Aaron had a little powwow. Does next Tuesday work for you? No, Miriam's got a tambourine recital. What about Wednesday? No. The time just came, and God moved those people to a new place, to a new situation. Ready or not, here it comes. That's how change is sometimes. But instead of ready or not, let's go with ready. There's an old saying that says, luck favors the prepared. I wonder if faith favors the prepared. We can't be prepared for everything, but here's what I mean. If we are spiritually prepared in the ways that we can be, through slow and steady connection and prayer with God, with healthy connections to church community, then when doubts or challenges or changes come, we will be better equipped. Stronger faith to manage it, trust in God through it. Paul compares sin to leavening in 1 Corinthians 5, and like preparing for Passover traditionally requires getting rid of foods with leavening, I wonder if letting go of sin, letting go of what holds us back from full faith and trust in God, will lighten the load we have to pack on our back when it's time to move. It's that time of year again. Time to ask what's next. Time to discern where to invest time and energy. It's time for changes. Whatever changes or challenges you are facing or will face, remember God's past faithfulness in order to increase faith in God's future faithfulness. Live into the experience of transition. Call on community for help, and do what you can to prepare yourself. Most importantly, remember that God is with you, even through the end of the ages. Amen.